This is Talking Foreign Policy, an internationalist perspective on Canada's role abroad. I'm Yves Engler. This week, the Trudeau government hosted a major summit, Caricom, Caribbean Community Summit, for the first time ever outside of the Caribbean, was hosted in Ottawa. And to discuss this fairly significant development in terms of Canada's influence in the Caribbean, its role in Haiti, I invited Tamanisha John, who is with Black Alliance for Peace and a professor at York University, to discuss this summit. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about what we know was discussed at the summit that I believe brought all of the leaders of Caricom to Ottawa, which on the surface of it seems like a weird thing considering the Caribbean community. Why would there be a Caribbean community meeting in Ottawa? But a little bit about what we know was sort of discussed at the summit, and then I thought we'd get into the Haiti question and maybe some of the broader history.
Yes, and so the summit took place this past week. I think it was from the 17th to the 19th, which is either Tuesday to Thursday or Wednesday to Friday. And the reason that it took place in Canada is actually because this past week, a lot of the Caribbean countries were actually under hurricane watch because there was this hint that a hurricane might come. And even though they were under this hurricane watch, it's the 50th anniversary of Caricom, and Justin Trudeau, the Canadian government, really wanted the summit to happen. And so they decided to host it here. And they not only hosted it here, but it was co-hosted by the Prime Minister of Dominica, Skerritt, of course, Caricom and Trudeau. But because of the hurricane warning, Skerritt only stayed for one day and then had to go back to Dominica to sort of sort things out regarding the hurricane. But nonetheless, I think one of the major motivators for having the summit in Canada is also because Canada is currently trying to petition to be on ironically, the UN Human Rights Council. There's also both increased Canadian and US interest currently in the Caribbean region, not only because they import billions annually from this region, but of course, you have Haiti, which was a big topic of discussion at the summit. You also have the fact that there's oil, and you also have what they see as growing interest by these states to engage with China. And so over the past 2 months, I would say, you've seen leaders in Canadian government as well as leaders in US government. And when I say leaders, I'm talking about security leaders and, politicians, really talk about how they're trying to bring the Caribbean back on the map. And it's because they're now viewing the space as a sort of revived site of competition between themselves being the Western world or the Anglosphere, against a growing China. Many people may or may not know this, but after COVID, a lot of states viewed sort of relations with Canada and the United States as a bit soured, given access to vaccines. A lot of states had to initially get vaccines from China and from Russia. You also had it where a lot of states were unable to put pauses on debts from the IMF or World Bank and had to take on extra loaning. And they regarded a lot of those policies as unfair. And China not only offered, aid, grants, some loans, and then infrastructural development at this time where those relations with states like the US and Canada were being soured, but actively created bilateral trade agreements, bilateral deals, and different memorandums of understandings with states. And so as we exit out of that period, I think that the US and Canada are, reviving their interest in the Caribbean precisely because of how states chose to engage with China over the past 5 years there.
I know Canada was considered the biggest hoarder of COVID vaccines at one point, so I'm sure there was anger, a minimum annoyance with Canadian government for that among Caribbean countries. But you mentioned the Haiti, and that seemed to have been an important part of the summit. The Canadian government has been pushing the Caribbean countries to join a foreign intervention into Haiti. That got some boost a few weeks ago when the UN Security Council passed a resolution to sort of approve a mission, not an actual formal UN mission, but a mission that I guess is going to be principally funded by the US government, Canada probably as well. So that was part of this summit. What can you tell us a bit more of the Haiti mission and how the Caribbean countries are sort of being pushed into it? Also, of course, Ariel Henry, the unelected and unconstitutional Haitian leader, was here as part of the summit.
Yes. So something that I found laughable about this summit was that they dedicated a sort of big roundtable discussion with all the leaders on regional security. And the only factor of regional security that they spoke about was the crisis on Haiti. So apparently now the crisis on Haiti is being framed or posed as this regional security issue. And so you would think that there is some sort of uniquely violent episode engulfing Haiti, that it warrants an entire roundtable discussion with all of the leaders at the 50th anniversary of the Caricom summit to talk about. And the reason why I'm mentioning this prior to talking about what exactly he spoke about in regards to Haiti is because you have states like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, which lead the region in terms of violence, but somehow Haiti is being framed as the regional security issue that must be looked at. And so at the summit, when they were talking about regional security, you had all of these states' leaders reaffirming their commitment and agreements, essentially, with the United States, with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2699, which was adopted, I think, on October 3rd or October 2nd, a couple weeks back. And what the resolution itself says is that the UN will have a sort of multinational security support mission sent to Haiti that is led by Kenya for a year. And while they're supposed to be training Haitian police, providing Haitian police support or assistance in security operations, protecting key infrastructure in Haiti, as well as combating arms trafficking in Haiti. And the end goal after the year is that there should be an established, strong transitional government that supports stability in Haiti. And I want to highlight the fact that they said that after a year of having troops in Haiti, what they want to accomplish is a transitional government, because to me that says that they are not trying to send this force there so there could be elections in Haiti. So they are not sending forces there for any semblance of democracy, even though at this summit they talked about democracy a lot and reaffirming Canada and the Caribbean's commitment to democracy, while they have an illegitimate Haitian president there, and while they're reaffirming this commitment for a transitional government, which, FYI, just means that there's not going to be a democratic election held in Haiti, but they're planning on having some sort of transitional government installed in Haiti. That being said, a lot of Caricom leaders welcome Canada's coordination role in building up the Haitian National Police. I don't know if you and the viewers know this, but Canada spends a lot of money on police in the Caribbean region in general, and especially gives a lot of money to policing in Haiti. A lot of the money that Canada gives to different Caribbean states goes towards things like border patrol and surveillance in the region. And then when we look at sort of Canada's role in training police in general in the Caribbean and helping the Caribbean build these police unions on different islands, a lot of it is to sort of intercept or imprison people for petty crime. And so just as we see in the US and also in instances in Canada, you have a large number of Caribbean people in prisons without facing charges. And so we're having a growing prison population problem in the Caribbean that I find to be directly linked to increased policing, training, and assistance being sent from states like Canada. Canada committed at the Caricom summit almost $7 million. So I think it was about 6.78 or 9, but a little bit less than $7 million to combating the arms trade in Haiti. And even though they framed it as combating the arms trade in Haiti, what should be pointed out is that a lot of the weapons and guns in Haiti are being sent in from the United States. And so you had the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Rowley basically saying that they support intervention in Haiti because guns being shipped to Haiti are being trafficked around throughout the Caribbean, murdering people in Trinidad and in other people's islands as well. And so really framing Haiti as the site where this sort of proliferation of Caribbean arms trafficking happens, ignoring the fact that most of the weapons that come into Haiti are coming from the United States. They also, there was at one point in the summit where Trudeau tries to appeal to Ariel Henry, basically saying he has to work with his political opponents to sort of stop some of the political tensions that exist in Haiti regarding elections. However, again, this is laughable. He's unelected and he's at a summit where they're reaffirming their commitment to democracy. But I think what he is more so concerned about is sort of pressuring Henry to have some sort of power sharing agreement with opponents in Haiti, because there are probably now also concerns about a potential assassination or something similar as what we saw with Jovenel Moïse. So a couple years back, prior to Jovenel Moïse's assassination, I gave an interview where I said there's a lot of tense political disagreement in Haiti amongst elite political factions, and you know it'll reach a bubbling point which could get disastrous. And then I literally gave that interview, and less than a week later Moise was assassinated. And so I think that there's this fear that because Henry, like Moise, is carrying this title as being unelected, as being illegitimate, and as ruling, and as, you know, bringing in all of this external force and external pressure to stabilize Haiti, that he's basically strong arming his political opponents to fall in line with what his government deems appropriate for Haiti. So again, there is a lot of sort of that political elite tension, as well as the fact that you have a lot of U.S. arms going into Haiti, creating or perpetuating the violence that is happening in the country.
I should also say the UN expert committee just this week, a couple of days ago, confirmed what many in Haiti have been saying for a long time, which is that Henri's kind of predecessor with the PHTK, Michel Martelly, was directly involved in supporting a whole bunch of gangs. This has obviously been widely circulating for a long time, but this UN expert committee really detailed it out and added sort of a certain degree of strength to this claim. And of course, this whole foreign intervention is supposedly to deal with gangs, and yet it's also propping up the Henri, which is the predecessor or the successor of the PHTK, which is sort of a bit bizarre on that kind of front.
Yes, and then in a sort of pseudo justificatory way, Trudeau used those exact sentiments to say this is why his sanctions on people in Haiti is justified. And so you had a lot of what I would call politicking that occurred at this summit, where they talked about Haiti, but didn't address any of the root causes for any of the problems that they were presenting. Haiti is manufacturing a criminal crisis across the region through the spread of arms. And that's how some of the Caricom leaders framed it. And it was like, Haiti is not the one trafficking arms throughout the Caribbean. If arms are being trafficked throughout the Caribbean, it's because arms are being shipped to the Caribbean from states with the capacity and the ability to manufacture, export, and disperse arms in the Caribbean. Or, there's a crisis of democracy in Haiti. There is no crisis in democracy in Haiti. That, again, is not an external fact or an external intervention to make it a crisis. And so the talks on Haiti seemed very shallow because they wanted to talk about problems without talking about the root causes of those problems. It's like talking about, what currently in the news. Oh, let's talk about Hamas terrorists while ignoring the fact that Palestine has been occupied for over 7 decades. It's like you're talking about a consequence of an action that has already occurred while failing to address what actions have incentivized the consequence that we now witness.
They didn't talk about the Ottawa Initiative on Haiti in 2003, where the Canadian government brought together U.S., French, OAS officials to overthrow the most popular politician in the country's history, which has, of course, laid the basis for a lot of the problems we've seen over the past 20 years in Haiti. So,
yes, and so the talk on regional security was very shallow. They tried to blame Haiti as, the site of all regional problems and regional instability without contextualizing any of it. Something else that I do want to note is that on climate change, the Bridgetown Initiative, which is an initiative that Mia Motley set forth, which basically says during times of natural climate disasters, Caribbean states' debt repayments, the loans and the interest should be paused, because when clauses were written post World War II for IMF and World Bank repayments, it never accounted for whole economies being wiped out in the event of natural disaster. And so that got put through, and I saw that it received a lot of writings in the news. However, what is not said is that it is not retroactive and it only applies to new climate disasters that come. So if, the Dominica had to take out a loan in 2018 because a hurricane wiped out its economy or whatever, that initiative doesn't apply then. So it's not retroactive. It's for if any new sort of hurricanes or natural disaster events come. Nonetheless, you have that being touted as, something that is great for the region as a whole. You also have where Trudeau said that he also will not force Caribbean states to pay back sort of any debts owed in the event of natural disaster. And of course, again, while it's being championed as something that was super popular, I don't think it would have gotten support had these countries not been in Canada, because they were already under hurricane watch during the summit.
So the summit, the fact that the 50th anniversary summit happens in Ottawa, the fact that the Canadian government is pressuring Caribbean countries to dispatch police or troops to Haiti, it speaks to this influence, and you've touched on it in a couple of different ways. You mentioned the policing. Canada's had significant policing influence, not just in Haiti, which has been, I think, fairly well detailed, but in other Caribbean countries. I know Jamaica training Jamaica's military for, not just training Jamaica's military, but also doing trainings in Jamaica. So can you give us just like a little bit? I think most Canadians know very little about Canada's influence. One of the things I noted is Trudeau talks about the long history of relations to the Caribbean, never mentions that those relations begin as part of selling cod to the slave plantation, to basically have a high protein source of fuel to keep people working on the slave plantations for 16 hours a day or whatever. So there's this whole like historical relationship that goes back a couple centuries with that trade and banking and this kind of stuff. Can you just sort of give us a little bit of an overview of just sort of Canadian influence in particularly in the former British colonies?
So Canada has a lot of mining, banking, insurance. They finance some roads for tourist industries and all of these things in the English-speaking Caribbean. But I think that something that stays through sort of Canada's long involvement in the Caribbean is this understanding of policing and security. And so even prior to Canadian banking interests being high in the Caribbean, for instance, Canada would lend, and as part of the British Empire, and then later on as after Confederation, would send sort of patrol vessels into the Caribbean to sort of spy on those states, make sure that they weren't being swayed by communism or swayed by rebellions and revolts. And something that's interesting to note is that is still something Canada does today. So even at the Caricom summit, Canada reaffirmed its commitment to sending patrol vehicles into the region to make sure, again, that the proliferation of crime stemming from Haiti isn't, going into all of these other countries allegedly. But during the summit, there was this statement made that Canada will more forcefully be a strategic partner with states in the region to follow through on a permanent mechanism for some sort of high-level engagement on joint actions. And so it was something that was worded in a very convoluted way, but it was essentially saying that Canada is committed to seeing the, continued military exercises and continued response, military tech, and military testing operations in the Caribbean region. And the reason why I want to start off by saying that is because Canada has sort of over the past 10 years and even, going back over 100 years, has been involved in these sort of regional or semi-regional security operations to spy on states in the Caribbean. And not just to spy on states in the Caribbean, but do so in a way where it proclaims that it is to these states' benefits, because these states are none the wiser and can be swayed historically by rebellion, by communism, and in the present by China. And so a lot of these structured high-level mechanisms for joint actions, we can expect it to happen from Jamaica, which again has the sort of Canadian Operation Support Hub or military base that is stationed there, where they do a lot of the military trainings. You also have it where Canada's patrol vehicles, or not patrol vehicles, but patrol aircraft that are flying over Haiti, also have the wider goals of making sure that there is no illegal activity stemming in the Caribbean from Venezuela. So, again, over 100 years ago, they're also spying on Venezuela, and they're spying on Venezuela off the coast of Jamaica, or using Haiti and patrolling ships that somehow, reaches close to Venezuelan borders. But they mentioned these joint action mechanisms in the same vein as they said that they want to surveil Haiti, Venezuela, and the Middle East. And again, this is at a Caricom conference, and they're mentioning Haiti, Venezuela, and Middle East in the same vein or in the same sentence, showing Canada's long-term commitment to surveillance in the Caribbean region. So Canada, even though it is basically referred to as having friendly relations with countries like Grenada and Nicaragua during their revolutions, was also engaged in high-level surveillance and spying on these same states as well. And so historically, Canada's role in the Caribbean has been to ensure stability for the British Empire by helping and aiding to stop rebellion. Later on, when the U.S. Post-World War II claims the fame to, global hegemon, and even then it's already a regional hegemon, Canada's also been very persistent in aiding the Caribbean region by providing the U.S. stability in that area. So again, through these sort of covert mass surveillance operations. You have some people today who ask, well, why would there be a Caribbean summit in Canada when you have what's going on in Palestine? Why is Canada not at the seat of these high-level discussions with Joe Biden as he's talking to, leaders in Israel? And a lot of that is because Canada's role historically and in the present has been to surveil and be the one that provides stability for the Caribbean in line with sort of US or British hemispheric interest. And we see Canada doing that today. Canada was the first one to make a call for intervention in Haiti. And even though Canada didn't want to put its own boots on the ground, since it is controversial, Haitians have been protesting against Canada, US, and French involvement for the past 5 years consistently now. And so it is no surprise that they supported first the Kenya-led, even though they're funding this Kenya-led intervention in Haiti. And so as it regards security, and now I will admit I lost track of the initial question that was asked, but Canada is really the one that's making sure that Caribbean states conform to whatever standards are set out by whichever global empire is, the biggest of the day, from when it was Great Britain to now that it's the United States. And so when Justin Trudeau says that he wants to ensure stability in the region and that the rule of international order is followed, what he's basically saying is he has a commitment to surveillance, patrolling, and other policing mechanisms in the Caribbean to make sure that these states and these countries stay in line to the preferred mandates or whims of Canada and the Western world.
Well, thanks for that. It's not, we don't get critical discussion of Canada's role in the Caribbean in the dominant media in this country. So thanks for breaking down that. And the historical part is I think really important because Canadian troops garrisoned some of the British colonies during World War I, during World War II. They planned to invade Jamaica if they had a socialist government. So there is this whole history that is not just history. It's still live in terms of politics. And the extent that the media in this country covered the Caricom summit, they mentioned a little bit about Haiti, but mostly talked about how great Canada was in helping to help the countries with the climate and debt and stuff like that. What in fact the reality of the history is a much more self-serving Canadian politics. Thanks again for coming on to talking foreign policy.
I also just want to mention one thing about climate, since I also pointed out that it's a bit tricky how it's worded, since it only applies to sort of new natural disasters that Caribbean states wouldn't have to pay on loans and interest. But also it's being touted that Canada is putting all of this money towards preventing climate change in the Caribbean or helping agricultural systems and climate change in the Caribbean. But what is not being told in that narrative is that a lot of it has to be done, or a lot of that money is actually going to go towards Canadian corporations and businesses in the Caribbean countries to stem this climate change. And so this is not an altruistic endeavor, even though it's being framed as such. And I think that that's important to highlight, because then you'll have people thinking, oh, well, Canada's giving this region all of this money, when that is not the case. Canada is investing in itself and it's seeking a return on its investments. And so there's nothing altruistic about any of the climate initiatives that came out of the Caricom summit, except for the fact that in the wake of new natural disasters, states won't have to pay automatically on loans or interest. However, when the natural disaster economy ends is also left for who to determine. Because if a natural disaster wipes out your economy this year, is it Canada that will then say, oh, your economy is now fixed next year, even though you haven't recouped any of those losses. So now your payments should resume. And so again, I think that we have to be much more critical when we see these kinds of things.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching Talking Foreign Policy.